And I'll say that all one more time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midway-Pacific Highway Community Planning Group's July 2022 meeting. Is 3:03, and we'll call this meeting to order. As per usual, we will bypass the approval of the minutes as we've not seen that yet, but I will like to open the floor to public comment. We have a few minutes reserved at the beginning of every meeting for the general public to come and speak and say whatever it is that's on your mind that is relevant to this planning group, but not included on today's agenda. So I would say if you have public comment, please raise your hand, please unmute yourself. I know Denise, you were planning on saying a thing or two today, so please, why don't you start us off?
Oh boy, that's a lot of pressure, DK.
All the pressure. I know you can handle it.
Yeah, I just thought the group should be aware. I have been a homeowner in the Midway district for, gosh, more years than I can remember, more than 30 years. So I actually live in the district. I don't just own property here. I've lived here for over 35 years. And beginning in 2016, when the education first group moved in, the noise, the things that we have had to put up with in our neighborhood have really been unacceptable and have impacted, I believe, my home values and my quality of life. Let me just give you a couple of examples. So there is noise all night long. And yes, they've been nice in giving us the name of their security officer. They're one security officer that they have. And basically what they tell us to do is call the police. And they have said that they can't ask students to come inside. It's part of the school. And I have enough background in land use and other things to know that that makes me question. So does their conditional use permit allow them to be outside all night making noise? I have videos because I've gone down there 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to see what's going on, because the security officers have said, I can't handle it. I'm the only one here. I can't tell them to come inside. I have pictures of kids throwing up in the bushes, kids having water fights, all other kinds of things, right? So just to give you some perspective, one of the neighbors did a Public Records Act request from October of 2016 to January of 2021. There were 265 calls to the police. And with 2 years of COVID, so think about that. That includes 2 years of COVID. My math says that's about 3.6 calls per week, or about once a month. So I really wanted to just bring this to the awareness that I'm not sure that their permit allows for all-night parties, gatherings of 50 or more kids. They have a smoking area where the kids sit out all night long. And the other part of it, and I've talked to Officer Dave Surwilo about this, is I've worked in the criminal justice, and I think it's wrong for a multinational corporation to use our police department to enforce where they're understaffed. I have a lot of empathy for those officers. I think they're understaffed, and that amount of police activity to me is really, I can only use the word reprehensible, that it's costing our taxpayers and our citizens to enforce what a multinational corporation is too cheap to staff and enforce, because they want to maintain their student as one of their best party schools there. So just wanted to raise awareness. I'll be back, and I thought you guys should know what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Denise. I also live just adjacent, I think on the other side. You and I sandwich that complex, so very familiar with what's going on there. I see Dave Surwilo is here today, so I don't want to put him on the spot, but maybe he can speak to that when it comes to his turn in government reports. We'll certainly continue to be here, and I do know that the EF school, I mean, I don't want to overly editorialize, but we do have contacts there, and I'm happy to engage to the extent that we can here. So thank you. Becky Rapp, go right ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Becky Rapp. I am a lifetime San Diego resident and mostly a concerned parent regarding the marijuana outlets that are opening up, particularly in District 2. District 2, as you're well aware, is already accommodating 4 very active marijuana dispensaries. This planning group, I know you're familiar as you've had experience with these applications coming through and going through this process with them. I'm very concerned, as it was brought to my attention, that a 5th applicant has filed a notice of application for District 2 located at 1215 West Nutmeg Street. Located within this planning group's jurisdiction. So municipal code, as you're well aware, clearly states that only 4 pot shops are allowed to be permitted in each district. I just, as this applicant moves forward, I would just like to encourage you to act swiftly in denying the project. I've seen applicants come before planning groups in other districts before having the proper cycle reviews in place. And the applicant can be very anxious to get approval from a planning group prematurely and doing a great disservice to the community. So I can drop this notice of application.
Yeah, Becky, sorry, real quick side. I hate to interrupt, but I just want to make sure that this is the non-agenda public comment. It sounds like you're speaking to something that maybe is on the agenda. So I just want to make sure that this is the portion where you speak to things that are not on the agenda. If there's that time later in the afternoon, obviously that would be the appropriate time for you to speak to this.
115 Nutmeg is not in the Midway planning area.
Okay, well, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you for that, Kathy, but to make sure.
It's not in the Midway planning area.
It's on the other side of Laurel. It's not in Midway.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So
Yeah.
you do, okay.
Yeah, comments that are not pertaining to items on today's agenda. Now's the time for those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see a lot of faces here today, especially Officer Surwilo. Thank you for showing up on the busy day. I just appreciate you. I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say to you. I have a really, I'm an owner of a new business going in at the corner of Midway and Kemper Drive, Stardust Float Spa Wellness Center. I'm really excited to hopefully open it eventually. Just one thing I want to throw out, a lot that we talk about is the planning and how long things are taking and how long it takes to get things like good housing, good shelter, affordability for people. And, one thing that's always talked about is, how the machinations of the planning committees are working. And as somebody currently going through that process, if there's somebody that could just speak to a little bit more about how we can support other businesses' growth for affordable housing when it seems like things are very nitpicked over and it takes forever to get calls back from people. Aside from that, a very humble contribution to today's meeting is, can we also, when we click on the link for the Midway Planning Committee, when somebody goes to look for where this meeting is happening, it's got Bay City Brewing as the address, as the location. So just in terms of kind of keeping the public, keeping us accessible, keeping information accessible to the public. For the location meeting on our website, on the city's website, it just needs to be changed to a Zoom location or whatever it is. So that's all I have today. Thank you all, everyone, for being here. I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for that update. I'll make sure the city is aware. I know in the before times, that is where we used to meet, but we've transitioned to Zoom and have been like this for a few years now. So thank you for that. Laura, welcome.
How are you? My name's Laura Cheslakowski, and I am the director of a nonprofit here in San Diego called We See You San Diego. And we do work reaching out to the homeless community in San Diego. And right now, our location is in the Marina district of San Diego. And our heart is to see people's lives transform, help them get off the street. So we do a weekly outreach on Tuesday nights in the Marina district, but most of our people that come to our outreach are from the Midway district and the Rosecrans area. They live alongside the riverbed of San Diego. And our heart is to see what's going on there truly change. We sponsor people to go to recovery and things like that. But we want to, I wanted to be here today because we are losing our space in the Morena district, and we are planning to move to the Midway district if we're able to find a building, because we believe that's the heart of the need in central San Diego. Of course, downtown is another horrible situation, but we really feel called to the Midway district. So I just wanted to introduce myself, and if there are any buildings that come to your minds, I know you all are the experts on this area, and we've been in that other area for 5 years. So we're looking now, we have a commercial real estate agent looking with us, and we're just looking for the right space to really be there to reach out to the community and see a change and a shift in the homeless population there.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Welcome. I think this might be the first meeting that I've seen you at here, so welcome. And there are certainly a few folks here, Jason, maybe Kathy, who I think maybe you can connect with and carry on that conversation, and I'll circle up as well, because that sounds interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, no, thank you. And with that, I believe that is the last non-agenda public comment. And so we will transition to government office reports. I don't see Kohta from the mayor's office, but I do see Makana from D2. So Makana, will go to you.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty brief. I'll have a more substantial update next time when we get the report from the Midway focused outreach effort that's happening right now. I'm sure some of you have been seeing them in the Hancock area on Sports Arena Boulevard. So I'll get some of the data from that hopefully by the next time that we meet. But one exciting update was I talked to Lisa Jones. I don't know if she's here. Try to click around and look for her, but the sprung structure that's going to be 150 new beds behind the county behavioral health facility there is supposed to be what I heard last. So hopefully that's going to help us all.
Okay, that is great to hear. Thank you, Makana. Moving on down the agenda, I don't see Nancy or Lisa from the planning department, but we do have Officer Surwilo here with us today. So Dave, please, hello, welcome, take it away.
Good afternoon, Aeryk. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for allowing me a few minutes. So we've been putting some effort into the area. I'm hoping that you're seeing some relief, especially behind Sports Arena and Pack Highway in regards to vehicle habitation. We have been addressing it with oversized ordinance vehicle issues, along with enforcement of licensing and driver's licenses, or not driver's license, but the licenses on the vehicles, registration. Trying to educate people in regards to safe parking lots, where they can go. If they are unwilling to do so, then we escalate it and do progressive enforcement. So hopefully you've seen some of the issues. I think that in some of those locations I've mentioned, especially those two, it's not where we may want to see it, but I think it's becoming more manageable in regards to how it was just a few weeks ago and over the many months. I go back behind Sports.
Yes.
Am I still on mute?
You're okay.
No, I've got you.
So I have seen, I've seen how bad it was, and I've seen how much it's improved, but I do think we have a ways to go. We will be trying to increase some of our vehicle habitation enforcement. And we are facing, the city is facing litigation, which has precluded some of the enforcement occurring. And so we're just doing the best we can within the parameters and direction that we're given from city leadership to do what we can to address the issues that affect your businesses, your quality of life, and your residents in your neighborhoods. And that's pretty much up for me, unless anybody has a question for me.
Yeah, any questions for Officer Surwilo? We'll go to the board first. And seeing none, we'll go to the public if anyone has any questions for the police department. Yeah, Rebecca.
I've just tried to call the Western Division, numerous times, and often just not been able to get a hold of anyone. When we're told to call I try non-emergency or I try specific divisions, like who's next if I can't get a hold of anyone?
So it depends on what you're looking for, but most calls, non-emergency calls, should actually not be directed to the substations. They should be directed to dispatch, which is 619-531-2000. When the recording starts, if you hit the star button, it will bypass the 3-minute recording, and then it should get you to a call taker. Sometimes, depending on the time of day and what you may or may not be calling about, it could be a high volume of calls coming in about the same incident or an unrelated incident at the same time. So sometimes there is an extended wait. It's no secret. It's been in the news that some of the non-emergency lines have been taking a little bit longer to answer. We've been able to answer the 911, I think, reasonably well, but there has been some degradation in regards to the ability to answer very quickly in regards to the non-emergency line. So for the most part, that's where people would be calling. It just sometimes depends on what the subject matter you're trying to discuss.
This business, it's been an empty building for years. And, just every few days I'm having to, move people around from there. And I've just been advised to call, my specific division and ask for more drive-bys or whatever in the area. So, just in following the instructions, if I can't get a hold of somebody at Western Division.
I'm assuming that you were told that when asking for extra patrol, you had called dispatch and then they're referring you to the substation.
No, just in these meetings, I've been told to call and leave you personally a message, which I have, but I don't get calls back, or sometimes people just don't answer the phone.
The best way to get in touch with me is via email, and I will put it in the chat when I'm done speaking, so that everybody can have it if they don't have it. The other thing is, if you go to our public website, if you go to the public website for San Diego Police Department, easy Google search, it'll pull up the city's website, you'll find the police. On that website, you're able to actually report and request extra patrol for a lot of different subjects that may be affecting the area that you're talking about. We have a section that is solely for traffic enforcement. There are some for extra patrols. Another thing that can be utilized depending on the situation is the Get It Done app. If you have a private property that has some issues there, then also the letter of agency is very helpful, and that can be found under.
I got that.
Yeah, so
got that. I'm doing all the things, I promise.
Yeah, it sounds like you are, and you're well versed. But I think that one of the problems is, is that it was, as you stated, an abandoned building for a while, and so it's going to take some behavioral changes, and just that's one reason why we hate seeing closed storefronts or businesses. That's where it becomes a loitering place. It becomes a long-term place to go. You think you clear out the first 12, and within a week or two, another 12 are there. Who knows where they came from? Maybe they were rotating around, and finally they've made it back. So it is a challenge, and it is a challenge. Let's be honest. In the Midway and Sports Arena area, we have county mental health there. We have a transit system there. We have a history where parole was there for a long period of time. It is a place that seems to attract or be the outlying area after the downtown area. So it does have some homeless challenges there. Hopefully some of the development and the efforts of boards and community groups like this one, the area is going to continue to move in the right direction. So yeah, I will put my email in chat, and maybe we can talk a little bit more offline in regards to exactly what you're looking for, and then I will give you the honest answer on how we can help you and what we can do. So I'll put that in chat as soon as we're done here.
Thank you so much.
No problem, and continue. Good luck with your business. I hope it does very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And Denise, go for it.
Yeah, so I know that we have chatted briefly about this a few months ago when it was really kind of getting out of control. There was a party, I think, of over 100 kids, and when I called, the security officer was like, "I'm the only one here. I can't do anything. They're overwhelming me too." And so I know one of our neighbors has asked EF specifically if we could do the conflict for, the center that does mediation and community mediation. I don't know if and they just are silent on that. They never responded to us. So I think that we're trying everything we can. Again, I really hate to involve the police. I know from my background that noise complaints are one of the main things that police. I don't know if it's a code enforcement thing. It's just when you see 50 or more people gathering, that just seems like, it doesn't feel acceptable to me that the school's like, well, it's part of our campus, so there's nothing we can do about it. And I just find that, you know, people talking and partying till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, that just doesn't seem right. Imagine if there were 50 homeless people that were gathered partying, the outrage that people would have, right?
Yeah. So
if you have any advice,
so let me just take a second to address some of that. Although I will say in jest and jokingly, you know, poor example of using 50 homeless people, because that's on almost every corner. It seems like more and more, and seems to be the topic that we talk about the most at all of our meetings throughout the entire city. So I know that we had some problems with the school before. You and others had reached out to me. I had met with the school. They had brought on new security leadership there, and when we did get in touch with some of the students that we were found violating laws out there in general, and even minor laws, we would give those names and contact information over to the school, and they were actually expelling those students out of the area. I felt as if we had made some progress the last time everybody had turned this into sort of a, hey, it's now a hot topic and we got to do it. And this is the first I'm hearing about it since then. So if we have re-engaged with more problems where it's starting to get out of hand again, then feel free to shoot me an email and let's start discussing offline. And then maybe I just need to go over there. I don't have the problem with the highs and lows. Like, hey, we're on a high, everything's going great. And then things get low. It's like, okay, we got to get involved and we got to do something about it again. And I think that when you have a situation like this will always be a high and low. How are we doing right now? Okay, hey, we're in a high right now. Everything's going good. Okay, we're in a low. Okay, we got to address it again, because they have an influx of students. They have that type of stuff changing. And so I do think, and I don't have a problem with it. Like always, like if you reach out to me, I don't have a problem with going over there and saying like, hey, here's what the new issues are. Hey, we need to start heading this off, before it gets even more out of control. I do understand what they're saying. Hey, it's a campus life, and there are times that people are going to congregate. But maybe there's some conversation could be had of, yes, at certain times of the day, it is appropriate to have people congregating at a certain area, relatively close to residential areas. But at other times, maybe it's not. And so maybe if this is becoming a new problem, if you could send me an email, and I think you still have my email, but I will be putting it in chat, then let's revisit it. And I have no problem with going over a meeting with the school, voicing the community's concerns. I mean, that's how I found out about the problem last time, was because people had reached out to me. So if it's becoming a re-problem, then let's revisit it. I don't have a problem with doing that. And I think that I think the school does try to do the right thing. As a neighbor, maybe I wouldn't feel that way, and I respect the neighbors' points of view if they don't agree with that. I do think that the kids get a little bit crazy at times. I definitely agree with that comment, and so I don't have a problem with always being involved in this, sending me an email, and at the same time, like, I understand what you're saying, like, hey, I don't want to bother the police, I don't want to call because there's a lot of noise because of what's going on, because we're short staffing, because there's other priorities. But what we need is, we need those records of, hey, listen, I'm over here at your school because look at last month we've had not that we got there and spoke to the students, but it's the fact that people called. So when I'm talking to the administration over there, and this could be for any school or business where there's a problem, I don't necessarily need to say like, oh, look, when the officers went on this time, this is what they found. This is what they found. This is what they found. What I need to say is, hey, man, this is how many times the citizens have had to call us about your business or your school. Now, although we don't have any answers because we were tied up on other priority calls, we can't continue to have this behavior. Something needs to be done. So the fact that we don't get there in time because of other calls doesn't mean that it wasn't a problem. we use common sense, and so I don't mind fighting for you guys and continue to argue, articulate your points of view. I understand sometimes I'm in the middle, kind of trying to get both sides to do a little bit of a give and take and balancing act in regards to what can we do in a business/residential area to make it so it's palatable for both parties to be able to get along. I have some places that are, residents that back right up to a bar. So I do understand, how in certain communities, it is, we have to balance it one way or the other, but sometimes it's the business needs to do more to address the issue. And that may be in this case. So feel free to email me. If you don't send me email, like I said, I'll put it in the chat, and we can go from there.
Cool. Thank you. We'll go last question, Kathy, and then we'll move on.
Okay, I just want to comment on this EF situation. I know Todd was on the board when we heard the CUP. It was several years ago. We brought up these exact situations. You've got kids who are young adults who are going to be there. We were assured that because we were promised security and curfews and operations like that. So if they're not being, in my opinion, I'm only one member of the board, but I think we need to take a look. We need to look at that CUP. We need to reach out to EF. The greater community need to reach out to EF, and we need to reach out. I was just looking up, there was a woman there by the name of Shauna Sullivan, who was our primary contact at the time that they were coming over. We were assured that these issues were never going to happen. And about a year or 2 years into the process, there were some issues over a cul-de-sac nearby and some people gathering on the cul-de-sac and it becoming a problem. And we asked EF to come in. They came in, we met with them, and they assured us that they would take care of it. Now, this is the first I'm hearing of any, and I'm not saying it isn't happening by any stretch, but I think we need to go to the city planning department, wherever that CUP is, and take a look at the CUP. But this was not what we were promised. And we were promised the appropriate enforcement. I mean, to hear them say, oh, well, it's a school and we can't control the kids, I say BS. I mean, this is a private school. They're paying a tuition to be here, and there are rules and regulations that need to be followed. And I just say that's not right. So I think we need to. I don't have a solution for you overnight, but I'm very sympathetic to it. I don't think the police department is the solution. I think the police department is the last resort. We need to get this under control. They need to be the good neighbor that they promised us they would be.
Amen. Yeah, so Kathy, I'll connect you with Denise or whoever else wants to get in on that effort, and we'll move forward in that way, because clearly there's some issues that we need to address.
Okay.
And just before I go, I'll just say this about the EF situation. If we are having a new issue, and Denise is bringing it up, and if it is necessary and we have to have a meeting, perhaps there's a member or two from the board, and Denise and maybe one or two members of the community that would like to meet with the school along with me, and we can have a meeting and talk about some of the stuff that, and then maybe the board can also bring in some of the stuff that their expertise in, the CUP, et cetera, and we can have a good discussion with them. And I know there has been some staff turnover there. The original sort of leadership has kind of turned over. But the lead gentleman, and his name escapes me right now, he was leading the school. He now leads the region, but he still is involved. Yes. Thank you very much. So I think that he would be receptive in regards to if we needed to have a small meeting, and just have a conversation and then go from there. So I think that everybody has valid points here and we can move forward, and I'll put my email in the chat for anybody who doesn't have it.
Cool. Thank you, Officer Surwilo.
No problem.
I know Lisa Jones was here and had to drop, so she'll come back. We're going to hear from the airport when we get down to our action items. I don't see Rebecca Smith from the District 3 County office. Are you here?
Yeah,
Hello.
I'm here.
I'm so sorry. Hello.
Oh,
How are
good.
you? Welcome.
I'm good. Sorry, my camera was having trouble there.
Yes.
I'm good. Glad to be here with you all today. I just have a couple quick announcements. Hopefully shouldn't take a lot of time. So first, Supervisor Lawson Reamer recently joined Supervisor Desmond to declare illicit fentanyl a public health crisis. San Diego County has seen fentanyl deaths increase exponentially over the last 5 years, from 33 deaths in 2016 to more than 800 in 2021. The declaration of this public health crisis will allow San Diego County to devote more resources to fentanyl education, treatment, and recovery. And then on a brighter note, we wanted to invite all of you to a community event with the supervisor on August 18th at Coastal Roots Farm in Encinitas. There'll be a farm, film, and music event to learn more about food system sustainability and to join the fight to make San Diego County a national model for climate action. So I'll put some links below for you all with more information if you'd like to sign up for that. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Any questions for Tara Lawson Reamer's office? Seeing none, we will proceed. So Cole from Toni Atkins' office is unavailable today, but he did send me his report. I'll drop it into the chat now. It has a high-level overview of the budget this past cycle and what their big victories as an office are. So let me drop that here. And we will continue to move on to, is Miki Holmes here? I think I saw Miki come in.
Yes.
From Chris Ward's office. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Your first meeting.
Word. I just have a couple quick announcements. The first one, I'm sure you've heard about the working families rebate plan. This is the legislation's plan. It's going to provide $10 billion in rebates to California taxpayers, and that's going to be distributed in 3 different tiers. The first tier is going to be single filers earning $75,000 or less, or joint filers earning $150,000 or less, and they'll be receiving a $350 rebate per taxpayer, and then an additional $350 for up to 1 dependent per household. The second tier is single filers earning $125,000 or less, and joint filers with $250,000 or less, and they'll be receiving $250 per taxpayer, and then an additional $250 for up to 1 dependent. And this last one is single filers earning $250,000 or less, and joint filers earning $500,000 or less. They'll be receiving $200 rebates per taxpayer, and then an additional $200 for up to 1 dependent. And those checks should be distributed in the fall. They're estimating early fall. And then finally, my last announcement is Assemblymember Ward is hosting a summer reading program for the children of the 78th. And it'll be culminating in a story time with Assemblymember Ward at the Mission Hills Library. So if you have any children of the preschool age, please drop by. We'll also have resources available, and Assemblymember Ward will give a legislative update as well. And if you have any more questions about that, I'll drop my information in the chat. And with that, I can take any questions.
Awesome. Thank you very much and welcome. We definitely will miss your predecessor. She was lovely, but you're great as well. So welcome, and looking forward to seeing you here regularly. Not seeing any questions, we will move forward. I did see Lisa come back in. Lisa, are you here now?
Hello. Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
Hoping I'd get in either before or after, and had to take a call in between. Good afternoon, everybody. I think Makana briefly covered where we're at with the sprung structure. Most of the site commissioning has been done as far as site setup for the new shelter behind the county psychiatric hospital in that parking lot area. Right now, HVAC and fire sprinklers are the major installation components. That's going to take us into probably the first week of August. And And then we'll do final site commissioning, which is basically setting up all of the resources inside. So the beds, staffing space, that kind of thing. Alpha project is about 50% on their way towards their staffing levels. So they're doing quite well. They'll also, I think I maybe mentioned on last month's call, they'll be bringing in key staff from other programs that they already run that have more expertise and experience, so that we don't want to have all new staff down at this site, right? We want a combination of seasoned staff, know how to do this work, know how to work with this population. So they're bringing in seasoned staff, and then the new about 45 positions that have been identified for this budget are going to go partially to backfill positions in other locations. So we'll have a combination of seasoned and maybe new staff to Alpha, not necessarily new staff to the work, but just making sure that there's a really strong team down there. We've also been having started a few weeks ago security meetings with the county sheriff's department, the police department, the security that's contracted on site at the county facility, and then Alpha's security as well. So making sure that there's a real strong coordination around security. And out working in your community. So we know that there's a lot of folks in the community. We don't have to look very far to find folks for this shelter. So already starting to work with the Sea teams. There's also some, as Makana mentioned, outreach going on right now out in that area. So we're starting to make those contacts as far as identifying folks who would be interested in coming in for shelter. So that's sort of the timeline on that. It's looking like early to mid-August for an opening date. We know many of you might be interested in doing a tour. So when we get closer to that point, before it opens, but when most of the site commissioning is done, so you can get a feel for it, we'll also reach out again, and it's probably through the mayor's office or council offices, and create an opportunity for you to come down and tour the site, meet some of the staff, those kind of components as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And should we hold off to hear from the mayor's office, or should we follow up with you when it comes time for that tour?
You can follow up with Kohta or I or Makana. All of us will be able to coordinate with you on that. When we have kind of an opening date, we'll make sure that we circle back to this group ahead of time, so that we can coordinate that. Just a real quick update on the harm reduction shelter. We've had 7 persons exit to permanent or longer term housing. We're starting to see that shelter stabilize. We're seeing less people come in and out. I think when we talked about this, when it launched back in December, we said with the population that we're trying to serve, which are folks with substance use disorder and sort of some of those higher challenges, we might expect it take a few times for people to start to stabilize. But the length of stay for people in shelter, so for what we call stayers, is at 89 days. That's what we want to see. We want to see folks stabilize, because as they stabilize, we have a better chance of connecting them to long-term permanent housing resources, also residential treatment, things of that nature. So we're starting to kind of see what we would expect to happen with that site, which I think is promising.
Good. Kathy?
So question about the new structure. Now that how many beds are going to be in the sprung structure?
We anticipate it being around 125, Kathy, but that final decision won't be made until the fire marshal does a full site walk once it's been fully commissioned, it's fully commissioned and up. So that's what we're guessing at right now.
Okay, so when people are off, and when outreach is made and people are offered a bed and a bed is available, and they choose not to accept it and to continue doing what they're doing, will the police be in a position then to remove them because they've been offered a bed? I mean, that's been an issue for a long time, was we don't have enough beds to offer them enough beds. So what is the process to get people off the street? I mean, asking people if they want to move and they say they don't isn't getting people off the street.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I don't think Officer Surwilo is still on the call because we're really not part of the enforcement side of it. There's 2 different avenues in regards to bed availability. One has to do with sort of enforcement of sort of sleeping on the streets, and one has to do with encroachment. They're kind of different. I'm not an expert in that, so I don't want to speak to that in inappropriately, I would really have to probably refer to PD or neighborhood policing division or your community relations officer on what that process would be.
Okay.
Apologize, just sort of outside of my lane.
So it sounds like we're not going to make any progress with people that don't want to.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that's not in my lane. I don't have the expertise on that process when it comes to enforcement and you know, public right of way versus encroachment. I really focus on the shelter side. I apologize. It's just not my expertise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And Kathy, I know there are a couple of different legislative, I don't want to call it a fix, but actions going on as well that I think will help with that mechanism that you mentioned there. What do we do once they've refused, assuming that there is capacity? So we can touch on that offline. But that being said, thank you, Lisa. Any more questions for Lisa? Yeah, Rebecca, go ahead.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for always showing up and giving us all the awesome updates. I definitely have seen some people with some Alpha Project vests on that look like they're working on cleaning up the streets around Midway. So that's really encouraging and awesome to see. I'm just kind of have a more general broad, you know, there's this new book and all this new research that's just come out saying, okay, it's kind of what we all knew, that the, you know, places in the country that have the highest amounts of homelessness have the least amount of housing affordability, right? So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that just makes sense, right? I mean, because you have an opioid crisis in West Virginia, that's, you know, kind of hot zone #1, but you don't have nearly the homeless problem that we have out here. So how kind of with this, you know, and now we have the data, the research saying like, yes, this is what it is. Areas that don't have as much affordable housing are going to have higher amounts of homelessness. How will the Housing Commission use this information moving forward to really like push this agenda of like, we see empty buildings all around Midway. You know, why can't we scoop up some of these, even in tons of boarded up buildings over there where, you know, even up in Point Loma where you see the old Navy barracks, just tons of housing. It seems like buildings sitting empty. Like, is there any way to use this information to really start making faster, substantial changes like we need to really make more affordable housing in the area?
Well, that's just a small question. I can answer that pretty fast. No, I mean, you make a really good point, Rebecca. And we were talking about this yesterday, a number of developers and community stakeholders at a couple different roundtables that happened over the last couple days. The new executive director, or new, he came in February, for the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness was in town. And that was one of the conversations we were having. And it's not just our downtown and like the area you're talking around Midway and around Liberty Station, you know, the nature of how we work over the last couple of years around the pandemic has changed, which is creating these scenarios where we do have these empty buildings and these empty spaces. And if at sort of a national societal level, we don't start figuring out how to reinvest in those spaces, we are going to see this happen and are seeing it happen in areas throughout the country where, you know, you go 3 blocks and, you know, a third of the buildings are empty or under-inhabited one way or another, whether it's commercial, you know, use or otherwise. One of the things we have to figure out is what the costs look like to like really rehab and remodel this kind of infrastructure. Because a lot of these commercial spaces aren't meant for ongoing living, mostly from a plumbing and or electrical load perspective. Right. So those are some of the conversations we're having. And I don't mean to sort of say the thing that sounds like it's somebody else's problem, because it's our problem. And our focus really becomes, I think, at a city level on looking at our own processes, which the council and the mayor's office has spent a lot of time on around like streamlining our like zoning, our planning, and our those are the conversations we're having with our national leaders. Those are the conversations that are being had at a state level, because we also need to simplify those processes that go after those state and federal funds. And then we need more of them, right? Affordability isn't going to happen by itself here.
Sure.
And I'm glad we're not LA, because some of the affordable housing they're building there right now is $1 million a unit. Ours from a rehab perspective goes anywhere from 275,000 to new construction 500,000 a unit. So we're not in that stage yet, but it's one of those answers that's really frustrating because it's not one answer. It's both what can we do to streamline our own processes? How do we advocate for more resources at a state and federal level? And then, you know, what do we do to better preserve what's already here and then keep people falling into the system? So to your point, yes, there's a fentanyl crisis, and that's an epidemic in and of itself that has to be dealt with. But, you know, there's also just people become homeless for all kinds of reasons. And right now, middle income housing is having a big impact on pushing people to homelessness because people are renting down, increasing, you know, our market costs, and people are falling out the bottom. So that upstream prevention is going to be really critical too, from a number of standpoints. But I think advocacy and at a state and federal level for more resources is part of the answer.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Last call for questions for Lisa. And seeing none, we'll proceed. I don't see anyone from Scott Peters' office or anyone from SANDAG, but I did.
That's me. I'm sorry,
hello.
my name is Keo. First name Samantha, but I go by Keo. It's my last name. I'm taking over for Aeryk. So I'll be joining in on the meetings, but I'll be handling all of the military and veterans casework portfolios, and I can drop down my contact information in my email if anyone has anything for me offline too. But it's great to meet everybody.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And so we'll look forward to that. So that was your update though, right? It was just the introduction?
Yeah, sorry.
Cool, no worries. Thank you, I'm glad you made it out. I believe I saw Muska as well. Muska, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, I am here. So first I'll start with OTC Naval revitalization because I know there's a lot of interest on that. My last update, just to reiterate for those who weren't there for the last meeting, is that Navy is still going through a process of putting together a solicitation proposal or a proposal for solicitation to the industry out there. We are trying to hire a master developer to come up with some of the alternatives for the OTC side before we finalize our environmental analysis process and select a final alternative, and a record of decision is signed. So we're still in the process of putting together that solicitation process. As you can imagine, an effort this big and complicated, we want to make sure we get it right the first time, which requires looking into the comments we have received from the public, the Navy's requirements. So looking through all of that different lenses to make sure that we are asking the right questions from the developers and make sure that we receive a product that is thorough and useful. And it includes not only Navy's requirements, but some of what maybe the community wants to see in that area. So again, it will have different alternatives and options for the private development. And from there, we will hire a master developer who will be able to produce a product and we'll go from there. Again, I don't have a date on that yet, but as soon as that date is available, I will provide it to the community group. Meanwhile, I know it has been a while that we have provided you a full brief on Naval revitalization. So if there is a community interest, we would love to come back, provide you a full brief again, go over the environmental analysis process, what we have done so far, and maybe answer some of your questions that you may have or you have thought about since our last brief. I can have my NAVWAR colleagues come here and present and ask some specific questions, or our base CEO can do that as well. But yeah, DK, let me know if there's an interest from the community. We would love to accommodate that within the next couple meetings that are coming up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just gonna say thank you, because we definitely will take you up on that. It's been just about a year actually since we put together our comments for that solicitation process last cycle, and obviously a few things have changed. So maybe at our September meeting, we are dark in August, but in September, maybe we'll look to have you come back and give us the update of what's changed, what's the same, kind of just help reframe that conversation, because it definitely got, it got blown up in a lot of different ways.
There has been some minor changes.
Some people wrote about it in the newspaper, no big deal. But yeah, cool.
We'd love to do that.
Thank you very much.
That's for Navor revitalization effort. And the only other update I have is due to increase in COVID cases in the county. So if you find yourself on any of the Navy bases, just remember that you're required to wear a mask. That's all I have. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions for Muska? All right. Look at us. I think with that, because I know Jim's not here, we are done with government reports. So thank you. Moving on to our action items today. We don't have any info items, but we do have a couple action items. The first one up, we're going to talk about the San Diego International Airport Terminal 1 shuttle lot relocation. That's a mouthful, but we've got a couple gentlemen from the Airport Authority come speak to us. Daniel Hershey and Ted Anasis. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Correct.
There we go. Thank you very much for joining us. If either one of you need to be a co-host, I can do that right now. And feel free to take the floor and take it away.
So can I share my screen and go through the presentation then?
You should be able to.
All right, let's do it. Share. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon to discuss the new Terminal 1 shuttle lot relocation project here at San Diego Airport. My name is Daniel Hershey. I'm the project manager for the Airport Authority, and with me today is Ted Anasis, the Airport Authority planning manager. So on the cover slide here, there's a rendering of the site which shows the entrance to the parking lot off of Pacific Highway, and you'll notice this building in the background. That's the proposed office complex that we are here to discuss today. So this figure shows the project location. Notice it's near the Sour Pacific Highway and Palm Street, just off of the end of the runway and right underneath the aircraft flight path. So it's a nice, quiet little spot by the airport there. Purpose of the project is to provide a new staging facility for the airport's existing fleet of electric shuttle buses. So that's parking, recharging, dispatching, minor maintenance. There won't be any kind of, oil changes or anything like that. But, the fleet includes different shuttles for rental car customers, airport employees, as well as interterminal transportation for the passengers. So that's another mouthful. If you take a look at the figure here, you'll notice shuttle bus charging operations are done over here in the north side employee parking lot. Shuttle bus parking is over here off of Harbor Drive. And really there's, relatively significant distance between the areas where the buses are charged and the buses are parked, and the buses operate all throughout this area. So, there are additional trips every day along Pacific Highway and along Laurel Street for the buses to come from the parking area to the recharging area. And we utilize Terminal Link Road to the extent possible, but there's contribution to additional trips along Laurel and Pacific Highway as a result of this charging and staging operation that we have. So later this year, the shuttle bus parking area is scheduled to be demolished. I'm not sure if you've noticed, there's a new Terminal 1 construction project here at the airport, and this shuttle bus parking area is kind of right in the middle of the construction area. So an airport access road is going to be realigned through this area, and ultimately that's going to alleviate some of the traffic for buses. But in the meantime, shuttle bus parking lot is going away and the buses need a new place to go. So we've identified the shuttle lot relocation area. Phase 1 and phase 2 are shown here in blue and red. A little bit more about what that means coming up in a few minutes. But I guess the number one thing to take away from this slide is the existing operation is not ideal, and one of the main points of this project is to have an efficient operation for our shuttle bus on the airport. Right now, it's an abandoned parking lot, and in the future, it's going to be an occupied parking lot. So a little bit more about the background and purpose. It's an abandoned parking lot. The existing conditions on the site are pretty blighted. There's vandalism, there's graffiti, there's some encampments, which, you know, are common to the area, as we've discussed at the meeting so far. And, you know, part of the project is to revitalize the site, preventing further decline of the area, and really just giving a new life to the region. So if you look at the picture here, this is the existing warehouse building at 2554 California Street. And this building is going to be demolished and replaced with a new modular building facility. A small group of about 8 full-time employees will occupy the building once it's constructed. Shuttle bus operators will park their personal vehicles on the site and will go into the shuttle buses as they work throughout the day. So there's going to be a presence on this site pretty much regularly all the time, and there'll be a closed circuit television as well as part of the site improvements, which will provide visibility when personnel is not on site. So just over the last month or so since construction has started, we've conducted repairs to the fence line. The encampments have been cleared, and just having a contractor's active daily presence on the site has kind of deterred any other activity in the area. So we saw the existing warehouse. We've got the frontage along California Street that's going to be improved as well with the project. And the next picture we have here is a rendering of a similar facility. So the modular building for this project is still in final design. This is just a rendering. It's going to be something similar to this Winston. Major items of work for the project. We mentioned demolition of the existing abandoned building. There'll be new construction for the modular facility for the shuttle bus operators and staff. We'll be installing electric vehicle chargers and infrastructure to support those chargers, which will charge the buses. Underground utility improvements, which include domestic water, fire water, electrical power upgrades, sanitary sewer, storm drain, and telecommunications. Pavement removal and replacement with a new pavement section, and then, you know, assorted site improvements, for example, landscaping and irrigation, pavement markings, ADA compliance, curbs, gutters, driveways, signage, and just all around improving the aesthetics of the site in general. And I mentioned that closed circuit television is something we're looking forward to, and I'm sure the tenants will appreciate as well. On this slide, we've got a blue and a red area. The blue phase 1 area is under construction now. And I encourage a group to just cruise down Pacific Highway near Laurel Street and just watch the progress. You can see that the parking lot beginning to take shape right now. And the red area is what we're here to discuss today. That's the California Street parcel. So you can see demolished existing building right here. That's that warehouse. And then the new facility is going to be right here where modular building is pointed out. Important to note that the blue area, phase 1, is within the Port of San Diego jurisdiction. So that's already been permitted. All the administrative items, planning, and everything else to get that off the ground is complete. Construction has been underway for the last month. This red area is within City of San Diego jurisdiction. So currently the design team is addressing review cycle issues, comments we received from the plan checkers. And one of those comments was to meet with this group today. So that explains a little bit why we're here. So just a little bit more basic overview. The blue area is with a shuttle bus operation. All these parking spaces are for the different types of buses. They're color coded because there's 3 different types. We don't have to get into all that right now, but the shuttle bus operation is here in the blue, and the office and parking lot staff and security will be housed in this red area. While construction is being conducted separately for these sites, ultimately, the two parcels will operate as a single facility. So why are we here? I'm sure you've heard about this, this form. Possible a formal vote of approval from this committee. If there are any concerns, recommendations, or special conditions for this project that we need to discuss, we'd like to identify those. Phase 1 entitlements, land use approvals, and permits are complete, and please go and watch that project under construction. It's pretty exciting. Right now, we're seeking approval from the city for phase 2. We've discussed that community planning and distribution form. And we are welcoming any comments from the group. I see Kathy has her hand up already. So we can move right into the questions.
I always have my hand up, so, but thank you for recognizing me. Is this, what side of Pacific Highway is this on? Is this on the east side of Pacific Highway?
Yes, east side of Pacific Highway, kind of sandwiched between California Street and Pacific Highway. The Hertz rental car, the Shell station, all of the existing businesses along California Street and Laurel Street are being maintained, and we're coordinating with them throughout this process.
So when the airport came to us and gave us all of their presentations about the shuttle buses and the shuttle system, the whole purpose of this, I thought, was to keep traffic, to take shuttle bus traffic off of Laurel and Pacific Highway. And now you're putting it right back on Pacific Highway. So how are the buses going to get from the airport property to the shuttle lots without being on Pacific Highway?
Danielle, I can answer this. I'm Ted Anisis. I'm a manager in the planning department, and I likely presented early plans, Kathy, that you're referring to. So the operations of the buses are between the rental car center and the terminal area using an on-airport terminal link road. So that road is constructed today, and the buses flow back and forth between the terminals and as part of the proposed Terminal 1, there will be a 3-lane entry road and a 1-lane return road that will be brought and added onto airport property, completely creating a closed loop on the airport. But you are correct. The buses will have to cross Palm Street to enter this terminal link road. So at the intersection of Palm and Pacific Highway, the buses will be accessing that terminal link road. They'll return here primarily in the evenings to recharge on the electrical vehicle facility. They will not be circulating on Pacific Highway, Laurel Street, or Harbor Drive to go between the rental car center and the terminals.
So you're saying they're going to go from the inner loop, they're going to cross over at Palm and use Palm to access to California?
And as well as Pacific Highway between Laurel and Palm.
It is a significant reduction in traffic versus the existing operations. The terminal link road is used now, but you know they do have to go up and down Pacific Highway and Laurel to get back and forth between the charging and parking. So having one central location for that eliminates all of those back and forth trips along Pacific Highway and Laurel that we have today. Yeah, at the end of the day, they need to go and park here, but they're not going to be going back and forth between those different sites anywhere near as frequently as they are with the current operation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you spoke briefly. I mean, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, but I'll have a few of my own at the moment. Can you speak a little bit more specifically to the ask that you're making of this group with respect to that document and what needs to be done as far as due diligence on our end before we just, vote to sign this off? Because there are a couple different sections here. And I don't want to be overly tedious and go through it section by section, but I do want to have a firm understanding of what the ask that's being made of this group is.
I guess best case scenario is a unanimous approval and check off that little box on the form. We note the number of members here that have approved, or there's nothing else to discuss about it. Then unanimous approval is the best case scenario for us. Obviously, there's concerns with the traffic flow that Kathy mentioned, but yeah, if we could identify those concerns and recommendations for improvements to the project based on what you've heard today, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's fair. And then can you speak to the timeline by which you need this approval on? Because I think it's sometimes difficult for us to see something for the first time and make a knee-jerk reaction to support it. Obviously, I don't think any of us want to obstruct the airport's process and project, but trying to get a sense for where is the opportunity for us to actually imbue some feedback, because Kathy's just mentioned a few things, but I don't see where what Kathy just mentioned fits onto this document.
Right.
So maybe like the wider process outside of just, I recognize that this is a box you need to tick in the overall process, but for the public, for this community in particular, what are the opportunities that we have to give you meaningful feedback that we can trust will be incorporated?
So we have regular meetings with the city permitting department to discuss this. This is bi-weekly. It happened. We discuss it at each of these meetings, where the progress is at. The Development Services Division, I believe our deadline is September, the first or second week of September, to respond with addressing all of the comments they provided. So I guess within the next 30 days or so would be ideal to have a response from the committee on this.
Okay.
So DK, if I might, it's kind of like we're closing the gate after all the cattle have left the corral, as far as I'm concerned. What I'm hearing, what frustrates and disappoints me to no end is why this isn't being located on airport property. There's property over on the other side. I understand why it's got to move from where it is, but you're running on that road. Why does this have to, and I'm sure you've got reasons. I'm sure you're going to tell me, oh, there's no room, there's no space, whatever that is. This is, you've already by right gone ahead and started construction. So if we were to say, no, we don't want it, it's kind of like, big deal, who cares? Because you've already started the process. This is, as far as I'm concerned, you're asking us for a ministerial approval on something that we're seeing for the first time, had no input into, and couldn't ask any questions about before you just went ahead and did the project.
Yeah, I was getting at that, but you, as always, Kathy, you read my mind.
Well, just one thing to note, it is airport property now. The parcel 1, the shuttle lot phase 1 area is being leased from the port. I believe it's a 20-year lease. And the phase 2 area, the California Street parcel, was purchased and is now airport owned. And as for the planning that went into selecting this location, I wish I could speak to that. I was not involved in that either. So
I can explain that the portion where the buses will be parked is a 20-year lease with the Port of San Diego. So that went through the port's development review process and their environmental review and coastal review process, and was there was an environmental review document as well as a board hearing regarding the area in blue where the buses are parked. We are hoping to place the modular building and the employee parking on the red area, which is the smaller California Street parcel, which is adjacent. So, but the bottom line is the electric vehicle charging infrastructure, there is not, unfortunately, enough room on the airport's limited 661 acres to provide that type of ground transportation use on the airport. Our priority is primarily aviation and runway, and then ground transportation as it relates to circulation and movement in and out of the terminal area. So that is why we had to seek this adjacent parcel from the Port of San Diego so that we can have an electric vehicle fleet at the airport.
Okay. Do you have any other questions or comments for the good folks from the airport today?
So, a quick question that I have. It shows on this diagram that shuttle entry down at the bottom. That looks to me like that's on Pacific Highway.
Correct.
Yes, the buses will need to enter from the Pacific Highway entry as shown here, and they'll pull into the lot and then they'll park, charge up, and then head out from here.
So if they cross Palm Street, they're going to what? Go down California and go down to Laurel and then make a right and then another right on Pacific Highway?
No, there is an entrance to the on-airport roadway system at Palm Street and Pacific Highway.
Yes, Terminal Link Road starts right here. It's kind of grainy in the picture, but Palm Street, you make the left on Palm Street, you cross Pacific Highway, and then the dedicated on-airport loop starts right there at Palm Street.
There is a control gate there that only the buses can use.
I know that. How are if you will remark that again, please. How are the buses going to get from the airport property to the lot? What is the route they're going to take?
They'll have to go down Laurel Street to Pacific Highway. That route stays, but it's just the number of trips that have to use that route is way reduced if there's one central operation for the staging, charging, and parking. Whereas now they're back and forth between times a day. It's going to be buses got to get recharged, boom, pull it in, leave it. But right now, also there's going to be 60, give or take, chargers here. Currently, there are 8 in the north side parking lot. So it's a constant choreography moving those buses around. There's nowhere they charge them here and then they got to pull them right back down here. There's nowhere to put them over here. So they're constantly relocating these vehicles.
Why don't you cross Pacific Highway at Palm and have them make a right turn into your lot there and never have to be on Laurel or Pacific Highway? Why can't they just cross over at Palm and right there at your little narrow edge, have them pull in?
So
No,
this
no,
lot,
no, when you cross.
She's
no.
saying to use the exit as an entry. And the challenge is the circulation on the site is very narrow and long. But she's asking if we can use the exit also as an entry.
And that would keep all the buses off of Laurel and off of Pacific and off of Harbor Drive and Pacific Highway.
at first glance, I'm not sure if the 60 kilowatt, the largest, longest buses are able to make that turning movement, because it's a small entrance here. There's a building right here. It's pretty space constrained. It's a narrow street. Without looking at what the turning movement simulation, looks like, I think that would be an issue accessing from Palm Street.
But didn't you say that's the exit?
That's the exit. Yes, they can come out of there and make that turn, but if they've got to make this serpentine movement around and pull a U-turn to get from Pacific Highway and do a full 180-degree turn into the lot, that takes a.
No, I'm saying don't go Pacific Highway. Stay on the airport road, and then cross over at Palm and enter into the lot.
Well, That's something we can certainly look at. I'm not sure how the circulation is going to work. I know part of the reason that the lot is designed in the way that it is with the spaces kind of facing this direction is because it's such a narrow site. They're going to be pulling in and then reversing into the spots to engage with the chargers. So I can certainly discuss that with the design team and see if there's an option to maybe rework some of that so that we alleviate traffic on Pack Highway. At first glance, though, I'm assuming it's a turning movement issue for the larger buses. Especially if all these spaces are occupied, there's no way that guy can come in here and make a 180-degree turn in that lot when there's only 12 or 15 feet between those parking lanes. But definitely something we can revisit with the design team to see if there's maybe another way to slice this up.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I feel as though I understand what the intent of this process is, and I want to support that. I don't love the timing, I think, and the lack of clarity around where there's meaningful opportunity for public input. But I think in the interest of not being obstructionist here, I'll go ahead and make a motion to support the request that's been made for us to tick this box. But I will be following up with you, Daniel, and everyone else who's relevant to make sure that I'm understanding what opportunities we have, and I'll disseminate that information to this group. So begrudgingly, I'll make that motion, and if I have a second, then I'll call for the vote.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, with that motion, with that second, last call for further questions or discussion. All right, let us call the roll. Jason, you want to call roll?
Let me unmute myself here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I might have to go back to do name by name here. I will go DK.
Yeah, yes.
Guessing you're a yes.
Yeah.
Karen, yes.
Yes.
Okay, let me open my screen here because I've got the shared screen, so now I can't see everybody. Okay, see if you guys don't move around. Kathy, yes or no?
Without wishing to be an obstructionist, no.
Understood. Chuck, yay or nay?
Yes.
Amy, yay or nay?
Yes.
I thought I saw Quentin on here. Is he still on here? Did we lose Quentin?
I am.
Oh, there you are. There you are, Quentin. Yay or nay?
Yay.
And I think that leaves me. I'll go yay. Motion passes.
All right, well, that motion carries. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you, airports folks. Like I said, we'll definitely be in touch, and I'll sign that document and have it over to you after this meeting. And yeah, that does it for action item number 1. And then we do have a second presentation. I think Phil Rath, you're still here?
I'm here.
Thank you very much for standing by. It is now your turn. If you need screen share, I'll go ahead and make that an option for you now.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
The floor is all yours.
All right, I will try and keep this brief, but give you all the information you need. And I'm obviously happy to answer questions as necessary. My name is Phil Rath. I am a consultant representing the applicant today for a conditional use permit for a cannabis outlet, as the city calls them, a dispensary, as some people call them. And I'm just going to share my screen, walk you through a brief presentation. I'm also joined today by 2 associates, Kwa Win, who works with me, and Diana from Techni Architecture. They are the designers and can handle more technical questions. So let me find the right button here. All right, can everybody see that?
Yep, thank you.
So this application is for a location at 2555 Kettner, which I'll just speed up real quick and show you on the map where that is. So as a previous caller discovered today, your boundary line is at Laurel, I believe. And so we are just to the north of Laurel on Kettner. You're probably familiar with it. You'll if you drive that road at all, you'll know exactly where I'm talking about. Could also be considered Little Italy as well, but this is a conversion of an existing small auto rental and one residential unit building. It is quite old. It is not a new building, into a cannabis outlet. It is a 1,500 square foot building. There are 5 parking spaces proposed for the facility. As a reminder, you probably don't need. There's no parking required in that area. But we do have the space on the lot, as you'll see in a little bit, and we do find that it is very useful for both employees and customers, but primarily employees and loading and unloading type activities. We are being required to make improvements to the right-of-way, including accessibility and parking improvements to bring things up to current standards, as the site has not been improved in quite a long time. We will be making other exterior improvements. We do plan to do those, including a total redesign of the facade. That is not something that is designed at conditional use permit application time. It's not a design review process. It's a use permit process. So we don't have that yet. However, I know you're familiar with the Golden State Greens facility that is down behind the sports arena, and our design team is the same design team that did that facility. So you've seen several of their projects. They do very good looking and very modern buildings, and we're confident it will look good in that area. The previous caller in non-agenda / agenda public comment brought up something that's important, and I want to address it, which is about the cap. You know, this is one of the few uses in all of city law where we have a threshold of how many of that use can be in an area. We use council districts, and the maximum is be in front of you. Well, it brings up something very interesting that's happening, which is we all went through redistricting. I think a lot of you participated in that conversation. The map lines of what makes up a district have changed for all of the districts. And what's happened is that the existing cannabis facilities stayed exactly where they were, and the lines moved. And now people who were in District 2 are not in District 2 anymore and have moved to a different district. The net effect of all that line moving is that District 2 went from having 4 today to this December, when the map goes into effect, we'll have 2 instead of 4. The 2 that will remain are, I believe, Golden State Greens and the Estudio facility, which I believe you approved their renewal last month or the month before. So we're applying, knowing that there will be a slot, 2 slots actually, coming available in District 2. It is not legal, nor will it ever happen, that at any moment, your council district will have more than 4 cannabis outlets. It cannot happen. It will not be allowed, and we're not asking for it. We're simply processing, and we will go to hearing for approval after that map change goes into effect. So just wanted to try and clear that up as best I can. I know it's very complicated, and I'm happy to answer questions on it. Let's walk through site plans so you know what we're proposing to build. This is very busy, but I'm sure you see these all the time. You can see in the center with the diagonal crosshatch the existing building. And this really shows that on the left-hand side of the site, there's a ramp that goes up to the back to the parking and loading area. The primary access from the public perspective will be at the front on the street, as you would want in an urban setting retail environment. We are doing street adjacent improvements, including landscaping and fixing the sidewalk up to current city standards. All of that is necessary before we can go into operation. This is a landscape plan, so you can get a little more detail on how specifically we'd be improving those areas, putting in trees and nice landscaping. Then here's the floor plan, focusing on the building itself, not the outsides. This is the first floor, which would be the retail facility. So people would come in through a controlled access point. And this would be where retail bud tenders, cashier, and merchandise would be available. There is a restroom on that floor. And then the second floor, which is existing but will be converted to this new use, is really more back of house for employees and management and storage as well. Vault systems are required. Highly secured storage is required by the city. Building exterior, here's the building we're actually talking about. It could use a refresh, and we will be significantly improving the look of that, although we don't have that design completely done yet. So in summary, these are the findings that are necessary to be made for a conditional use permit to be approved. And we're confident we'll be able to make those findings. We're not going to adversely affect the land use plan. This does meet the zoning that are required for these CUPs, not be detrimental public health, safety, or welfare. We meet all the operational requirements that you're familiar with, things like security systems and guards, hours of operation. Complies with the land development code, and we're not requiring any deviations. We're not rezoning. We're not asking for any exceptions. And it's appropriate at the proposed location. We're very fortunate. Usually these types of facilities have a hard time locating because they're churches and daycares and other sensitive receptors. And honestly, being under the flight path in a kind of semi-industrial area works really well. We don't have any obvious sensitive receptors nearby, and so we're pretty happy to find that. So that really wraps up my presentation. We are here asking for your support. Oh, I should point out one other thing. We are in review with the city. We have received comments from the city. So far, those comments are encouraging. We do have some things to work out with them on the more exact specifics about the redesign for the parking, making sure that the cars can all fit and that we're optimizing that and how that ramp works. But otherwise, we don't have any significant issues. So happy to share those letters with you along the way. I think we might have already sent them to you, DK, but we obviously need to go through that process to its completion. And we would love to get your support today, even if it's conditional upon satisfying all the city's requirements. Oftentimes groups want to see us do that, and we would agree to that. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for that overview, Phil. That actually makes a lot of sense. The piece about redistricting, that was my first question when I saw the email come across, and I thought we already kept out, but redistricting makes sense. If there are any questions from the board, I'll turn it over to you folks now. Kathy, go ahead.
How many employees do you expect to have during business hours?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a pretty small facility. So generally speaking, we would have a manager and 2 to 3 retail staff, and then the security guard or guards. Okay. So probably in the 7 or 8 people.
Okay. So my concern, I don't have a problem with the location. I don't have a problem with the use. My concern is this: as you point out, this is not particularly in a residential area where people are going to walk to you. If you've got if this is on a very busy major street and close to a very busy intersection with virtually no parking anywhere to be found. So as we have seen in the Hancock Street, at the Hancock Street location in Midway, what tends to happen, and they have a parking lot, it happens to be at the back, people pull up and start double parking, and they're in traffic lanes, they're in the middle of the street. I think, I mean, we know now after a few years of this use type. I don't have any problem with the use type. I have a problem with there not being adequate parking to provide to your customers, because people aren't going to come here any other way than in a vehicle. And where are they going to park?
Yeah, so we agree with you completely. When we first submitted this project to the city's comment was parking is not required. And the parking space you have on the site isn't ideal. So we don't want there to be any parking. And we said, no, that's not going to work. We need to maximize the parking. We obviously don't own the entire block, so we can't just park wherever we want, but we're limited by the space that we have. So we're working very hard. That's really what we're working hardest with the city on right now, is how do we make sure we're using every square foot that's left for parking to avoid neighborhood impacts. I would say, I do think this will be the most walkable of these facilities in the whole city because of our adjacency to Little Italy. I agree with you on Hancock. I'm familiar with all the other facilities in the city. They are generally auto-oriented. And this one is kind of one of the first ones that I think is going to be this close to the urban center. But agreed, we're trying really hard to accommodate that need.
All right. Before I'm going to let everybody move, I'm going to let you all move on, but DK, I would support something in favor of approval of the project in concept, but that I understand that the zoning may not require parking, but I think it is absolutely absurd that anyone in the planning department says there shouldn't be parking. I think that's just egregious, and that's my O2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Todd, go ahead.
Thank you, DK. Yeah, my question is, maybe this is to the rest of the board or even to the gentleman presenting here, wasn't there a request for the same type of thing just around the corner off of Laurel a few years back, and was that you?
I'm not familiar with that one, so it wasn't me unless my memory's just gone really bad. Not familiar. Okay. There have been many attempts at these. These don't always get approved, but I'm not familiar with one on Laurel.
All right, thank you, Phil.
Chuck, my mistake. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I think I scrolled down too far.
No, that's fine. Appreciate your presentation. I will second a lot of what Kathy says. I'm on this boulevard quite often, and people are traveling extremely fast because they're coming off of the freeway. I'm very concerned about having a facility. It really is upsetting to me that the planning department is allowing any type of business to have no parking. It just is really disappointing that we've got a city planning department that allows that use. So I'm very concerned about parking as well. There's also, as I go and look at Google Maps, there used to be 2 addresses at this location. Are you taking control of both of those? You said there was an apartment. Is that second address at that location?
It probably is. I don't know officially the answer to your question, but I will tell you our property is, if you can see my cursor, the back of the property is here, and this dirt area is not us. So we have this small building and then the concrete around it, but we don't go all the way back. So my guess is it's the 2 suites, so to speak. It's the first floor office use and then the second floor apartment.
I think that's correct. The addresses that come up on Google is 2555 and 2557, and so
that sounds right.
Yeah. So are you're under the understanding that your use will be using both of those addresses?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, Becky, go ahead.
Hi, yes. I I appreciate the presentation and the lesson on the redistricting, as I did not realize that this left District 2 with only 2 marijuana outlets. With that being said, I still feel that this is extremely premature. Whether there are no sensitive uses within 100 feet or 1,000 feet, whether the traffic is acceptable or not acceptable, no cycle reviews have been submitted. Nothing has been taken to the city because this should not be allowed until this coming next year. Therefore, I find that it is really unacceptable and premature to vote on something that is under the pretense from the applicant that everything will be approved through the city and not actually seeing documentation and those cycle reviews present prior to a vote. So I feel that this should definitely be an informational item and not a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Rebecca.
Thanks, CK. I was just looking at the little Google map of the area too, because am I correct that the business used to be a rental car with the apartment above in that little spot?
Yes.
So on the map, I can see, so that makes me think it was a rental car place. There should be plenty of parking spots where they parked all those rental cars, because that little driveway that I'm looking at on the map with the concrete pad in the back, it looks like there's space for at least like 5 spots behind the building. Are those, is that not part of your space?
Yeah, it is. So here's why that's confusing.
Okay.
The current use, and I should be clear, it is currently being used for that rental car business and will continue to be until we occupy and make the changes. They're parking probably more than 5 cars back there.
Yeah.
But the standards for how parking needs to be arranged have significantly increased. They're much stricter than when this was built way back in the day. So
because you need an ADA access ramp from the front of the building and a handicap spot from the front of, you can't have a handicap ramp coming behind the entrance of a building, correct?
ADA is part of it. So you got to have clear pathways for a wheelchair to maneuver in between cars. That didn't used to exist. The space sizes have gotten bigger. Cars have gotten bigger. We've started to accommodate that. So if you take something that was built, I don't even know when this was built, but I'm going to guess in the 70s. If you take what was allowed in the 70s and compare what you're supposed to do today, what you get is a shrinkage in the number of cars that you can accommodate. And so we're working with the city to try and maximize that, obviously following all the codes, but make sure the arrangement is such that we're not missing out on a space or two. A space or two really matters here.
Okay, so I mean, but that does kind of clear up that there is the potential for some parking actually behind your building. But yes, you'd probably have to put like a handicap spot, like in that front space where they're stacking up a couple cars off of the sidewalk, right?
Yeah, we're also exploring, oftentimes in areas like this, putting the handicap space on the street is sometimes better compared to going back. I know it's not, there's no like obvious, easy, it's not a suburban mall. So we have to kind of work with what we've got. We're still working through that stuff, but our proposal is to do 5 parking spaces. That's what we're proposing and pushing to do.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because it does look like there is some, it's not like, yeah, they said you don't have to have any, but there is a potential to actually have some off of the street. Okay,
and
thank
Phil,
you.
This is, sorry, this is why I think in our design slide, there is one handicap accessible spot that is the closest to the building. Go back to the previous slide. The previous slide. No, the one with the highlighted. One more.
Oh, right, there we go.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, so you see that spot, this one here, that will be the accessible. Yes, correct.
And then we've got 4 standards, but you can see how much space has to be back here. And we're trying to squeeze as much as we can.
Okay.
Thanks, Qual.
Kathy?
So would you consider or agree to requiring your employees to park off-site as a condition and make these parking spaces accessible for your customers?
Yes, that is not a problem for us, practically speaking. It's honestly best practice for pretty much all retail businesses to make your employees not take the prime spots, right? Restaurants do that,
Right.
Grocery stores do that. I don't know whether it can be and isn't just me saying, yeah, I promise. I'm not real sure how to do that, but we could get back to you.
I appreciate that. I just, in your presentation earlier, you said that the parking would be primarily for the employees. And if you've got 5 to 7 employees on site, they're all going to be, vying for those on site. So I would feel better about this if I knew that there was off-street parking available and available for customers, particularly, I mean, obviously the handicapped, a lot of people that need to purchase these products are people that are handicapped, and so they need to be accommodated. And I just think we're all taking our lives in our hands if we expect these, that everybody's going to just go find some place and walk to this outlet.
That's fair.
So I would support it on the condition that employees were not permitted to park in the dedicated parking lots.
Okay. Kathy, you want to go take that half step and go ahead and make that motion?
Sure.
Sure.
I will move to approve this project as identified to us, subject to a condition that employees are not allowed or permitted to park on site, and that those parking spaces are reserved for customers, and also that the project meets all of the requirements, including the December redistricting validation, so that we are only approving this subject to the availability of a permit in District 2.
Okay. I will second that motion.
Can you address, DK, the issue that that Becky brought up about that? Why is this in front of us if it's not ripe yet for approval?
That is a good question. I'm unfamiliar with this city website posting that Becky's mentioning in the chat, but I can only surmise that the applicant reached out to us specifically because they're trying to get ahead of the curve. And Phil, feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong. But my sense is that you are attempting to get your ducks in a row so that on the day that the light turns green, you're prepared to submit everything and you have everything in hand. Is that correct, Phil?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's not unprecedented. People were looking at the Complete Communities Law before it was finally enacted and available for action, and putting applications together. So it happens with the building code from time to time, where the state building code changes and people will start to process their building permits based on new code requirements in anticipation of those laws actually taking effect. This is just a strange one because of the nature of these permits being capped, and 2, that redistricting only happens every 10 years, so it's a little bit foreign to everybody. But that is our intent, is to be able to be approved as soon as that that new map goes into effect and not wait.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clarifying my suspicion. But I do have a sort of in that same direction. My comments and questions sort of do relate to that.
Sure.
You mentioned that the new redistricting lines will effectively free up, I guess, 2 spaces within the city's cap. Do you have a map, or do you know what other parcels across the new district, the entirety of District 2, where I guess facilities like this are allowed? I know that the city is going through, I think, a fairly robust update to the municipal code, I think it is, with respect to where these things are functioned, whether we're talking about tax payment responsibilities, various different things. So I'm just trying to help frame this in a way that we understand what is the impact of our potential action today, and how does that either sort of help or hurt us as a community going further forward as we look to, I mean, the reality is, as far as I'm concerned, at least in my suspicion, all 4 of these permits will be used somewhere, right? And so I'm trying to get a sense for what is the value or potentially the harm to locating one of these locations here in the Midway district, part of District 2, versus somewhere else across the wider city council district.
Yeah, it's a good question. Couple of thoughts on that. Number one, eligible locations for this use type are incredibly scarce, just broadly speaking. Number two, locations that are available are not uniformly distributed across the entire city or even within the same council district. All residential zones are prohibited, for example. Almost all retail, what you would consider to be, a retail environment is these facilities get developed so far. They're in the sports arena area, and they're down here at this lower end of the district. So I don't think it really makes a huge difference. The city's code attempts to stop over concentration by prohibiting these being within 1,000 feet of each other. And that's really the nod towards, I think, what you're talking about of over concentration.
Okay. Yeah, because there is, to your point, you're correct. We did approve a similar, I guess it was a renewal of a conditional use permit that is around the corner from this. It must be over 1,000 feet, otherwise you wouldn't have made it this far. But I think that is something that I know I'm sensitive to, is just that general distribution, and then ultimately the impacts. But I think certainly at this point, Jason, as long as you got it, we do have a motion on the floor. We do have a second. If anyone has any additional questions or comments, I think now's the time. Otherwise,
my only quick question is just to jump in is the delivery service and then hours of operation.
Oh yeah.
Sure, great question. So hours of operation are set by city law and state law. I believe the current city law is 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. There are discussions, I will be totally honest with you, there are discussions at the city of increasing those hours to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, because that's what the state allows these to be open. So the city's current operating hours are a little smaller, shorter. So that would be the maximum. The state law is not going to change. So 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then I forget, what was the second part of your question? Delivery, yes. So delivery is allowed from any facility of this type with this permit. We probably will run some limited amount of delivery, but I will be honest, this is not being developed for its delivery potential. Because of the parking constraint, because of where it is in town, it's not easy to use for that purpose. Delivery.
Yeah, so I was just trying to get an idea on what the traffic's going to be like. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty high.
I can't promise that there won't be any delivery happening. There will be some, but it'll be very small. It'll be like people calling in who are normal customers who just don't want to drive down that day. Probably less likely that it be a a real internet-based service that I think other stores are better positioned to fulfill.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote. I can run through and just take a roll like last time. If you
Go for it, Jason.
Group doesn't mind, I will start off. My top left of my screen is Todd. Todd, yay or nay? Please unmute yourself.
I'm going to go with nay.
Kathy?
Aye. Yay.
Thank you. Chuck?
I'm going to add on to Becky's concern. I think that we need to wait till this is officially part of our district. So I'm going to be a nay.
Karen?
Yay.
DK?
I'll vote yay.
Amy?
Yay.
Quentin?
I'm a yay.
And myself, Jason, I'm actually a nay based on the location. And it may be premature, but we have yays have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 3.
Okay.
Motion passed.
Okay, thank you very much. Phil, we can connect. I don't know what sort of documentation you need from us, but happy to provide that as appropriate.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time.
Well, thank you. All right, so with our last few minutes, we'll try to tidy this up and end relatively on time. Moving on to CPC report, that's me. At our last CPC meeting, we actually did, we had a presentation from the city's Development Services Department, also known as DSD, specifically from their new cannabis business division that kind of went over one of the, I guess, the municipal code changes that they're proposing or that they're kicking around. Nothing's been formally adopted yet, but it is part of the city's annual code update that I think gets sort of validated at the end of the year. Outside of that, we had elections for CPC leadership. So we do have a new chair, a new vice chair at CPC. The chair is Andrea Schlageter, actually from Ocean Beach, our neighbor just over here. And then our vice chair is actually from Claremont now. So we've got new leadership at CPC. That took up the bulk of the meeting, but I'll be curious to see how that all shakes out. The only other thing that we talked about at CPC was the ongoing community planning group reform sort of package that the District 1 Joe LaCava's office is putting through together. That is looking like it's going to come in front of City Council for approval in September. The CPC is still staunchly opposed as currently drafted because of the last two outstanding, I guess, items or hills that they want to stick to. One has to do with the no cost appeals, and the other one has to do with the cooling off period after someone is turned out of a board. But other than that, CPC was very straightforward, and it was about as exciting as it gets. Okay, so any questions there? Seeing none, moving on to the chair report. The only thing that I wanted to bring up in this chair report is something that I think Amy had mentioned earlier. I do record these meetings. We do record these meetings. So far, though, I've just sort of been banking them. I put them on a Google Drive, and anyone who wants the link, I've sent it to them. But I think what I may do more proactively going further is just putting them on like as an unlisted link on YouTube and embedding them on the website. We do have a website. I do keep it up to date with the agendas and news articles and things. And so I think having a video version of our meetings as they are recorded seems to be the easiest way. And so I don't know that there's necessarily action that's required from this group, but that's something that I'm just going to go ahead and take that next step on. But happy to take questions. And if no one has any, then I think we are on to new business, if anyone has new business. Not seeing any new business. We have old business. Not seeing any old business. We have reached the end of our agenda. And with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn us at what, 4:57 p.m. And we'll see you in September. We go dark in August. Remember that? Dark in August. We'll be back September 21st.